بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. The author Imam Ash-Shawkani rahimahullah, after speaking on those people who have to offer the 5 daily prayers, and who are the Muslims, who are the individuals that become excused or exempt from those 5 daily prayers, he mentions a branch, a further field of detailed study of the salah, and that is the extra salah, the involuntary salah, the supererogatory salah, the sunnah salah, the nafil salah, the tatawwu' salah. The wisdom behind this is very clear and very profound. We spoke on this several times. Rather, we did a conference on this, in which we talked about the wisdom of the extra prayers, what purpose they serve, and the depth of the legislation of those salawat. We also spoke on the names of these types of prayers. Sometimes they're called tatawwu'. Obviously, the main reason of these prayers being legislated is to patch up some of the holes, some of the flaws in the mandatory prayers. Patching up, whether that means missed mandatory prayers, or whether that means patching up the modality of those mandatory prayers, the actual hay'ah and the kayfiyah and the sifa, praying lazily, delaying a prayer unnecessarily, scratching your hands, fumbling around, looking around, so on and so forth, whatever the case may be, not having full khushu', things like this. We explained that. And also some of the names of Salatul Tatawwu', whether it's called Nafil or Nafila or Ratiba. And also the different categories of Salatul Tatawwu'. Those things which are highly recommended, those things which are basically generally recommended, those things that are borderline obligatory, those things that can be done anytime, any place, those that have to be done in a specific time, a specific place, or a specific region, etc. And it's very important for the Muslim to read about this. And one of the things that the Muslim should read about, or one of the places in which he should read about regarding this topic, are the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Nothing should stop a Muslim from reading Sahih al-Bukhari, the summarized version of Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Bulugh al-Maram, any book of hadith that deals with the prayer and the recommended types of prayer. If you want to know what's the sunnah and what isn't the sunnah, how many rak'at for tarawih and not, which prayers are borderline recommended, which prayers are just normally basically recommended, which prayers are disliked to be made during this time, which prayers have a reason, etc., then there lies no doubt a person should read the kutub of hadith. Benefit from the kutub of fiqh as well, benefit from fatawa, the lectures and the classes, but to read from the books of hadith is the beginning and the end. Anyway, to move forward, the author rahimahullah says, "Hiya arba'un qabla al-dhuhr." He starts off with the tatawwu' prayers that come before Salatul Dhuhr. Why did he start off with Salatul Dhuhr? Why didn't he start off with Salatul Fajr? Why did he start off with Salatul Dhuhr? That's a very long discussion among the people of knowledge. Some of them say is that they speak on, or they begin with what Allah had began with in the Quran. Some of them say the first prayer that Jibreel alayhi salam led Muhammad in was Dhuhr and not Fajr. And things, different reasons like this. Al-Muhim, the author starts off with Salatul Dhuhr. He says 4 rak'at before Salatul Dhuhr. That's the first type of tatawwu' that he mentions. And we know that these types of prayers that deal with the 5 daily prayers are known as al-rawatib, as-sunan al-rawatib, or al-rawatib, or salat ratiba. Moving forward, he says arba'un, 4. He doesn't say 2. A branch would be, do you make the taslim after every 2 or continue them all with 4? He didn't mention that detail. Wa arba'un ba'dahu, 4 afterwards as well. وأربع قبل العصر, and 4 before Asr. Many people may not know about this. It may be the first time they hear about this, to make 4 rak'at before Asr time. He mentions these among the recommended prayers that are to be done, the rawatib, according to the author, rahimahullah. Is there hadith to support this? Is there ijma'? Is there consensus, etc.? Not being discussed right at this moment. He then says, وَرَكْعَتَانِ بَعْدَ الْعِشَاءِ, and 2 units of prayer after Isha. 2 units after Isha. In one's home or in the masjid, al-muhim, 2 units. He then says, وَرَكْعَتَانِ قَبْلَ صَلَاةِ الْفَجْرِ. What he says here, F1, we skipped 1. He says, وَرَكْعَتَانِ بَعْدَ الْمَغْرِبِ, 2 after the Maghrib prayer, 2 after the Isha prayer, and 2 before the Fajr prayer. Do you lie down on your side after you make those 2 rak'ah, right or left? Do you make the 2 rak'ah in your home, then go to the masjid where you have to sit down? What do you do? Do you go back to sleep? He didn't mention any of those details. Most important, 2 rak'ah before Salat al-Fajr. Are the 2 rak'ah al-Fajr the most superior of the rawatib prayers? The ones never to be left off, even whilst traveling, etc. The author, what? Didn't mention that. He then says, وَصَلَاةِ الضُّحَى, and making the duha prayer. Making that which is called ad-duha prayer. How many raka'at for ad-duha? The author doesn't specify here in this beginner's book. 4, 6, 8, 10, or just 2. Recite audibly or not. What time is duha? Is it right after Fajr? Right after sunrise? 10 minutes after sunrise? And is it called shuruq? These details must be found and must be discussed in a book of larger size. The author, rahimahullah, then says, وَصَلَاةُ اللَّيْلِ. He says, and the night prayer. The night prayer. Making salah at night time. In other words, not the rawatib, not after Isha, not after Maghrib, which is the night as well. But the author is talking about standing, regardless whether you call it qiyam, whether you call it qiyam al-layl, whether you call it tahajjud, whether you call it tarawih, etc. That's a discussion in itself. The names and the terms of the recommended prayer at night, and the mass confusion among many people, whether they be scholars, students of knowledge, let alone the lay people, with regards to qiyam and tahajjud. Tarawih is one thing, tahajjud is a different thing. Qiyam is one thing. Is there a difference in the sunnah? Linguistically, rather. And this goes back to the general concept of who Allah wants good for. He gives them fiqh of the deen. And what better source to learn fiqh of the deen as a beginning, as a starting point than the sunnah of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. Moving forward, he says, وَأَكْثَرُهَا ثَلَاث عَشْرَةَ رَكْعَةً. He says, and the maximum amount of rak'at you're allowed to make 13. Not 20, not 40, not 8, not 11, but he says 13 rak'at. How does a person recite in these rak'at? Long surahs, short surahs, several surahs. Make long ruku', long sujood. Salam after every 2 rak'at or just the 4, etc. Witr. Speaking on witr, he says, يُوتِرُ فِي آخِرِهَا بِرَكْعَةٍ. And at the end of them, he should make 1 rak'ah. 1 rak'ah for witr. In other words, he makes 12 units of quote-unquote qiyam and 1 unit of tarawih. 1 unit of witr. The author doesn't mention 3 or 5 or 7 or 9. He just says 1. وَتَحِيَّةُ الْمَسْجِدِ. And also making the 2 rak'ah before one sits down in the masjid. The author does not consider them in this book to be mandatory. He considers them to be voluntary. He considers them to be optional, to be recommended. And there's several different issues that pertain to Tahiyyatul Masjid. If you leave the masjid and come back, if you make the mandatory prayer, is that enough? Or you have to make an extra special rak'ah? What about when the sun is setting, when the sun is rising, during Jumu'ah, if there's a lecture? What if you're invited to eat, etc.? Wal istikhara, And also the istikhara prayer. When a person wishes for Allah's guidance. When a person wishes for Allah to help him see what is most beneficial for his deen in his dunya. He may be confused, he's unsure, he doesn't know what to pick, what to select. He asks Allah Azza wa Jal for true guidance. He asks Allah to give him the best mode of action, the best course of action, the best path to take. Khair, istikhara. He asks for Allah's khair. How to make salat al-istikhara? He doesn't mention here in detail. 2 rak'ah. When does a person make the dua in istikhara? In the tashahhud or after the tashahhud? You raise your hands. If you don't know the dua, can't you read the book? If you don't know the dua specifically, can't you just make any 2 rak'ah and ask Allah in general? All of these different details. Do you make salat al-istikhara more than once? Etc. وَرَكْعَتَانِ بَيْنَ كُلِّ أَذَانٍ وَإِقَامَةٍ. And 2 rak'ah between each and every adhan and iqamah. Yani of the salah. Before the adhan and before the iqamah. One should make some type of salah. 2 rak'ah like this and like that. Without any restrictions on time or location. A person is a traveler, a person, etc. Between every adhan and every iqamah, one should make the extra rak'at. It's very abandoned practice of many Muslims today. So there's a very simple, brief, and easy layout of the voluntary prayers on this beginner's level. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to give us fiqh fi ad-deen. هذا والحمد لله وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا محمد.